All right. Does everybody have their Unity socks on? Got to show your commitment. Got to represent around here. All right. I am Reverend Shad Groverland. I'm the Executive Director of Unity Worldwide Ministries. What does that mean to you? Well, you may or may not know we have about 650 ministries around the world flying under the banner of Unity. And my position is to support, to oversee, and to help bring the leadership into those ministries and help make those ministries thrive. So day in and day out, I am contemplating Unity principle. I'm contemplating how do you make Unity more successful, more impactful, more transformational. And that's where my mind and my life lives, and my wife, Erna, is always stuck in that world with me as well. We call ourselves church nerds. We actually listen to podcasts about church and watch shows about church and what's happening in the world today. So that's where we are. So I'm constantly thinking about this stuff. And one of the things that is on my mind throughout my life, you just go to the next slide. I'll just tell you to go to the next slide. We'll just do it that way. It'll be fine. Oh, was I hitting backslide? Aha. I'll try to use this again. Okay. What do you need to be happy? Have you ever asked yourself that? What do you need to be happy? I didn't say, what do you want? I said, what do you actually need to be happy? We're told by the world, and we're raised in society to assume certain things will bring happiness, right? There's a system in place. There's 2.5 children, there's the white picket fence, there's the house, there's the marriage, there's all these things, there's the car. We're sort of put on this path that we assume leads to happiness. But how often do we ever stop and say, well, wait a minute, what do I actually need to be happy? Well, I've found myself, and I can think of 3 specific times in my life when I've been following that path, went to college, got my degree, went into my actual career, sound engineering, and I get to a place where I was so in debt, not only financially, but energetically to my work, that I stopped and I said, I'm following the plan here. Why am I not happy? I have no time. I don't really see my friends, hardly ever see my family. But I'm doing exactly what society told me to do. This is the prescribed system. But I am not happy. 3 different times in my life, I would just dive back in and say, all right, I'm not going to do that again. I get wrapped back up in the system, and I'd stop and go, ugh, I did it again. I now have debt again. I don't have time again, and I'm not happy again. Until you finally reach a place, if you're hopefully going through this process, you say, the system doesn't work. The world has no clue what's going to make you happy, and it's all just a farce. Has anyone else ever reached that place in their life? We reach that place, but how many of us have the willpower to change course? That's the hard part. So, Albert Einstein, pretty smart dude, if you ask me, said a calm and humble life will bring more happiness than the pursuit of success and the constant restlessness that comes with it. Anyone else ever experienced the constant restlessness that comes with the pursuit of success? Success. Nowhere in that system to success does it ever mention happiness. It's just success. And we put on the pedestal all these people that are, quote unquote, successful, but yet when we learn about their personal lives, they're miserable. Has anyone else noticed that? Superstars, tech CEOs, billionaires, all these different people that you thought absolutely had it all, are medicating themselves into comas, or committing suicide, or cheating on their spouses, or beating their children. Horrifying things from people you thought had won. They worked this system and they won. They're right where I thought I wanted to be, and yet I find out they're miserable. But I don't stop and go, oh, wait, I got to get off this train. How many people ever stop and say, I got to get off this train? No, we go, oh, well, that's an anomaly. I'm going to look at this billionaire now and go after that life. Surely someone at the top has figured it out. That's the system. I keep being told, this is the direction, this is the system. It's just an anomaly that every time I see someone at the end of that system, they're miserable. But it's really hard for us to kick the habit, because ingrained from us since birth is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not, how do you want to feel when you grow up? Did anyone ever ask you growing that? How do you want to feel when you grow up? And you just, as a kid, you naturally go, I want to have fun. I want to be happy. And if there was an honest person in your life, and they'd say, okay, then ignore everything that you're about to be told for the next 20 years of your life. Because no one you're going to run into on that journey, your scholastic journey, your work journey, your business journey, is probably going to be happy themselves. But they're going to be guiding you along the way to fit you into that system, to become a consumer, to build your debt, to build stress, to have your body start breaking down, having your consciousness start breaking down, and to you've somewhat just given up. And you say, well, I'm just a cog in the wheel. That's good enough for me, I guess. Well, we have the genius of Mr. Miyagi. If you don't know who that is, I apologize. It might be generationally specific. Focus. We've got to focus our lives. I recognize, probably in my 30s, if I don't put focus into my life, someone else will. It was a really profound moment for me. If I don't take control of my life, someone else will. It could be a spouse, it could be a teacher, it could be my boss, it could be someone on the news, it could be someone in the government. Everyone else is happy to use your resources and your time. Have you ever noticed that? Come on, people, have you ever noticed that? People have no problem using your resources and your time if you're not actually using them efficiently. They're like, well, if you're not going to do it, I'll do it. You don't have a life? I'll give you one. That's pretty much, in my 30s, I realized that's how the system's designed. Someone else is picking your life for you so they can use you to their advantage. Is that a shock to anyone in this room? No, it's not a shock to us. We know it, but yet we don't do much about it. If you don't take your life to task, if you don't put your life back into your own hands, you have fundamentally handed it off to someone else and said, do what you want with it. My happiness is not that important to me. Just do what you want with it. Occasionally I'll come to a point where I'm so depressed and upset that I'll probably pray to God and say, God, please do something with my life. And God's like, you've already handed it to everybody else. I'm out of it. I gave you everything you needed when you were born, and you listened to all these people that were miserable, and you wound up being miserable. Shocker. Shocker that your mentors made you miserable. We got to focus on something in our lives, but we're so scattered by everything that is happening in the world. Right? The media is telling us one thing. It's all filled with fear and negativity and sickness and doubt. Our friends and family are bought into that same system, so they're feeding fear and negativity and sickness and doubt into our consciousness. And so it's all around us. It takes a lot of willpower to try to step out of what's going on. But another brilliant mind, another brilliant soul, Mother Teresa, said, live simply. Nah, I want a complicated, messed up, ridiculous life. That's what I want. She doesn't know what she's talking about. I want 2 cars I can't afford. I want a house I can definitely not afford. I want children that are driving me crazy and a spouse that just can't wait to leave me. That's what I'm looking to put together. That's the plan for me. Simply, no. And in 3 different times in my life, when I came to these points, I said, how did I get here? It's like the Talking Head song, how did I get here? I would realize every time I allowed myself to complicate my life. And after I'd have one of those premonitions or those realizations, I'd say, you know what, I'm going to scale back. I'm going to scale back so I have enough money to live on. I'm going to scale back so I have more free time. And I would. I'd say, hey, life is pretty good. And then I allowed one more thing to come into my life, and I'd allow another thing to come into my life, and I say, you know what, I could use a promotion. I'd try to work my way up in my career and say, you know what, I deserve a better car. Now that I've got this promotion, I'd get a better car that I couldn't afford. And it just took about 10 more years, and I'd be back to where I was before, and I'd go, for Christ's sake. I'm going to say that. Is it okay if I say that? I say, for Christ's sake. It's a quote. I'm quoting myself back 15 years ago. Why do I keep allowing myself to do this? When I get to a place where I have joy and I've simplified, I just start piling on the garbage again. And I realize because I'm in a system, I'm working against not only all the people around me in life, I'm working against a system designed to make me go back to being a slave to that system, to being a cog in that wheel. How hard it must be for me to fight against an entire society that is designed to put me back in that system every time I step out. Has anyone else ever experienced this? It's hard to get out of the rat race because it's designed to keep you in. Just keep dangling shiny objects in front of you. Go, oh, I need that. Oh, I need that. Gotta have that. But is anyone ever actually dangling genuine peace in front of you? So I had to come to the realization that my life was out of control and other people were controlling it. So I had this thought, does the way I live align with my beliefs and my priorities? Does the way I live align with my beliefs and my priorities? I realized my life did not. It was aligned with other people's beliefs and their priorities for me. My job had a priority for me that had nothing to do with my priority. They kept wanting to advance me in my career. I was a sound engineer. I was working on the floor of these arena shows, working sound for these giant arena shows. I was having the best time, so much fun. And they promoted me to a desk job. I had one of the coolest jobs on the planet, and they promoted me to a desk job. It paid more money, but I was no longer doing the awesome shows and working with incredible musicians I was doing. My life was not aligned with my priority. My priority was to have more time with my family, so I had scaled back to just working 3 days a week, to making enough money doing these shows to have more time with my family. But gradually, I got more hours. I had to go full-time to get promoted, got my desk, and I sat there and I go, oh, they got me again. They got me again. These tricky little creatures. Does the way I live align with my beliefs and my priorities? It did not. It absolutely did not. Over and over again, I realized it did not. I was raised in unity. I had these principles. That's probably why it was just pounding me in the head every time I came to one of these moments. You are not living in integrity with your own beliefs. And that's a really frustrating place to be in life when you realize that. It's an incredible opportunity moment. And sometimes we belittle like frustration in life. Frustration is a powerful spiritual tool. It's your consciousness saying, do something different. Wake up. So, you have to take your life to task. So I started working my consciousness through a process using my Unity tools. I was saying to myself, if I actually believe in God, now just don't go any further. If I actually believe in God, let me say it again. No, if I actually believe in God, not like everyone says I believe in God and then goes about being a jerk. I mean, if I actually believe in God, and I decided in that moment, I do. I actually believe in God. Then God has to become a priority in my life. If there is this universal intelligence moving in and through all things, in and through me, as me, I probably should spend a little bit of time trying to figure out how to get in contact with that, don't you think? How to get in a recognition of where it's designing me to go. Because most of my life I spent just fighting this energetic flow, trying to walk upstream, going, no, I've got my own direction I'm going. And it just kept laughing at me and going, okay, flicking me around. If I actually believe in God, it would have to be a priority in my life, and I would have to change some things to make sure I was in alignment with this essence. So what then in my life needs to shift to align with that belief in priority? If I actually believe in God. Now, I can't say actually enough because we have these layers of belief. It's like, yeah, I believe. Yeah, I believe a little bit more. Yeah, I think I believe. I mean, if you actually believe in God, think about this universal, infinite intelligence moving in through all things. If you actually believed in that, your life would completely change. You'd go, all this other stuff I was doing, totally pointless. Complete waste of time. If this thing we call God is actually real, boy, would I change how I'm treating myself and others. I would have to shift my life to be more in alignment with experiencing this thing we call the divine, we call God. So I realize I have to have a dedication to a daily spiritual practice. I have been raised in meditation with my family. I went off to college, did my thing, kind of meditated maybe once a week here and there. I believed, but I wasn't really putting much effort into it. When I got to ministerial school, after I had my calling for ministry and I showed up in ministerial school, I had this hit. I was like, I could not stand on stage talking to a group of people about God and not be working every single day of my life to connect with God. What a hypocrite I would be. And since that day, I have only increased the amount of time I spend each day working to contact God and be in communion with God. Every single year, I increase it. I do it twice a day. I pray at least 6 to 10 times a day. I do not want to be a hypocrite in my life. If I tell people I believe in God, they better be able to look at my life and go, that dude does believe in God. Because is there enough hypocrites in the world? What do you think? Are you tired of hypocrites in the world? Yes. Do you think we should be hypocrites in unity? No. It's going to require of us a daily, dedicated spiritual practice. It just does. And it can't be this like, well, I'm tired this morning. I don't know. I'll do a little bit more tomorrow. And then if we actually believe in God, we would absolutely have to be working every single day to get closer and closer and closer connecting with this divine source. If you want to be a great guitarist, you want to be a great drummer, pianist, you've got to practice every single day. It's not something you go, I bet once a week I'll become a great master at that. Every single day you work it. They say 10,000 hours it takes of practicing a musical instrument or some craft to become an expert at it. You would have to put at least 10,000 hours in of meditation and prayer to think you're getting anywhere, to really get in tune with this divine essence. I would have to be dedicated to my spiritual community. Every spiritual master talked about the power of spiritual community, coming together with like-minded individuals doing this work, holding each other accountable, lifting each other up, supporting each other through this process. There is so much power in what we're doing right here. Coming together as like-minded individuals to grow and learn together. That means, you know what? I would have to be dedicated to my spiritual community. I'd have to be showing up every single Sunday. I'd have to start volunteering. At that time, I did. I started volunteering in the youth department at my Unity Church in Las Vegas. I volunteered. I said, you know what? Whatever you guys need. They said, we need a board member. I said, I'll do it. I got on the board. All of a sudden, they said, we need someone to speak on Sunday. I said, I'll do it. Next thing you know, I was their minister. I did it. But from that moment, when I started asking these questions, I just opened up to the universe and I said, I'm going to stop trying to design my life because my designing has sucked. My planning has not really worked that well. I know there is a divine plan for my life. There is a flow that is trying to pull me in a direction that I am called to. And instead of me trying to always predict and control it, I'm going to give into it. I believe in a yes universe, and I'm going to sit back and say, when it comes to me, I'll recognize you've brought it, and I'll go there. I'll use my discernment, my spiritual discernment, so I'm not just taking more things in my life. But from that point, when I dedicated myself to spiritual practice, when I dedicated myself to spiritual community, the doors just started flinging open. Absolutely amazing. Dedication to unity principles. Not just talking about them, not just pontificating about them, not just doing book studies about them, actually applying them in my daily life. I'm going to use these affirmations and denials. I'm going to use this prayer practice. I'm going to use this meditation. I'm going to read these books from our founders and the great people that came after them. I'm going to dive into this because I want to understand how this stuff works, because I've seen way too many people that it's worked for. I don't want to sit there and be like, well, I'm not one of those people. No, I want to be one of those people that stand up and say, this stuff works. This is not a joke. This stuff really works. I had a minister ask me not too long ago, said, how did you go from being ordained in 2016 to the head of our movement in 2020 or whatever it was? I said, I didn't want to do this job. That's how. I just had to say yes when the universe kicked open a door. They said, well, what was your plan? Like, what was your strategy? How did you know you need to get on the board? And you're like, I had no plan. I didn't want this job. And the universe said, we have designed you for this job, like it or not. I did not pick this job picked me. Looking back at my life and the skill sets I bring to this position, it's hard-pressed to think that I was not being groomed for this position. So, unity principle. If I'm going to live this unity principle, we say we are all one family. As children of God, individualized, unique expressions of the one. We are one family. If I actually believe that, that's going to shift a lot of things about how I live my life. How will this shift my life knowing I believe it and it is a priority to me? Again, I'm looking at what is the priority in my life. One of those is unity principles. If I actually believe this to be true, my life is going to change based on that truth. I will not consciously or subconsciously, directly or indirectly suppress or harm members of my God family. That means I have to start doing a lot of work and analyzing my consciousness and analyzing the systems of the society around me to make sure I am not party to suppressing anyone else or anything else that is working to have joy in their life. And I have to actively make sure I'm not a part of anything that's suppressing someone else or something else. I can't just sit back and say, I was raised in unity. I'm not a part of racism in this world or sexism or bigotry. No, I have to actively work. And when I thought about this, I realized we are not all one until we are treated equitably. Because I could think, oh, we're all one, and I could miss the fact that some of us are struggling more than others because society's been designed to benefit some people over other people. Here I am as a cisgender, white, middle-aged, heterosexual male. We designed this country to benefit us, people like me. And so I have a distorted perspective of what the world is like because I come from a group that was literally designing the country to work for me. And if I'm not now actively working to break that system, I am supporting that system. And that has taken years of me reading and studying and diving deeper into where is my own unconscious bias for the system that is benefiting me and actively suppressing other people in our world, suppressing them from having the opportunity and the access for spiritual practice, unity principles, and God. That's not very fair. Suppressing their access to joy. This includes all suppressed groups, Black, Indigenous people of color, LGBTQ+, women, people of varying abilities, and animals. So I will no longer be party to the suppression, exploitation, or consuming of members of my God family. It's a place I've come to in my consciousness. I just can't do it anymore. I just can't. And everyone's at a different place in their path, and everyone has their own choices to make, and I don't try to push my beliefs on anybody else, but for me and my path, I cannot be party to suppressing other people's access to joy. and their right and freedom to make the choice to live their life how they'd like to live it. So, it's a journey, but it's a powerful, heart-opening, joyous journey, which really comes back to, what do you really need to be happy? We live in a country that uses, per person, the most of the world's resources. And because of the amount of resources we use, other countries suffer. And that we tend to have to use the resources of other countries to keep sustaining how many resources we use in our country. It's a very uplifting talk. How's it going so far? Everyone feeling good? We fired up? I was telling the group of ministers and leaders yesterday, I've been called to bring reality back to unity. It's not the easiest job. I tend to be a target, but I can't let things slide anymore that we've been sliding for too long in this movement. What do I... Thank you. What do I really need to be happy? I know I've done lots of things that did not make me happy that I thought I needed. I've had beautiful cars. I have had ridiculous houses. I was at one point $1.2 million in debt in my real estate investments. I lost my house to bankruptcy. I had lost all my properties to bankruptcy, foreclosure. I followed the system. Mother Teresa, actually, the full quote of what she had said is, "Live simply so that others may simply live." The earth has plenty for all of us if we're sharing, if we're only using what we truly need to find joy. And when you really start to analyze your life, you realize, I really don't need much to have joy in my life. It's just everyone else around me trying to convince me I need a bunch of garbage in my life to have joy. But they don't even actually mention joy. They say words like success. This is the tiny house that Erin, my wife, and I live in. It is 180 square feet. We have the blessing of living on grounds at Unity Village, just south of Kansas City, Missouri. Together in our marriage, we were blessed to have found each other. We both realized we don't want to be part of a system that just is about consuming more and more and more. So we started scaling back our lives, and we keep asking ourselves, how much do we need to be truly happy? And we realized we didn't use much of the house we had that currently had 5.5 bedrooms in it. Most of them sat without us ever going into it. Only had one child, not really a need. So we scaled down to a 2-bedroom apartment. In a 2-bedroom apartment, we said, do we really need all of this? We basically spend all of our time in the kitchen, either cooking or chatting or talking or sipping tea, and our kitchen's about 100 square feet. So, of course, the tiny home shows were getting popular on TV, and everyone watches the tiny home shows, and they all love the tiny home shows, but very few people actually pull the trigger. And we said, we're going to do it. And we lived in a county where tiny homes were illegal. And most counties are, by the way, if you didn't know that. So we actually lived illegally in a tiny home on a piece of land, off-grid, for 6 months before we could actually, the universe brought us this position where we could move it to Unity Village and have full hookups. And we've been in it for 3 years. And we love everything about it. And one of the beautiful things about living tiny, living simplified, scaling down is that you don't hang out in your house. You go out in the community. Because you don't have every single thing in your house. You go, you know what? Let's go out and check out the library. Let's go hang out at the library. Let's go to the park. Let's go do things. Our society's tried to build the idea that you have to have everything in your house so that you never go out and see anybody. But you look at primitive cultures, we lived very small, and we depended on community around us to support each other. And that is the tiny home lifestyle, that you actually start networking with other people in your area to say, well, I don't have a bathtub in my home, but maybe someone else does. If I need to take a bath, I could check in with them. Or maybe they have a rake. I don't have a rake, but they might have a rake, but I have a bike. And if they need a bike, I've got a bike. You start thinking about we're all sharing the resources instead of I have to have one of everything. And people say, I could never do that. But our brilliant, spiritually advanced founders, one of which was Myrtle Fillmore, said, true prosperity is not making money or putting out goods or developing property. It's determining what our souls require in order to cause them to unfold more of God. How do I unfold more of God every day in my life? It means I'm dedicating more time to God, to my spiritual community, and scaling back on the nonsense in my life. It's counterintuitive to everything we've been raised with, but it's actually the path to joy. You're not going to add more things to find happiness. You're going to remove things. And that is the truth as I experience it. Thank you.